All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome back to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. The X Zone is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed worldwide on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Stephen Bassett, and he is a political activist, disclosure advocate, and the executive director of Paradigm Research Group, which was founded in 1996 to end a government-imposed embargo on the truth behind extraterrestrial-related phenomenon. Now, Stephen has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of disclosure. Now, that's the formal confirmation by the heads of state an extraterrestrial presence engaging in human race. He has lectured around the world on the political implications of UAP ET phenomenon and given over 1,200 radio and television commercials, no interviews, I'm sorry. And joining me now from parts unknown is Stephen Bassett. And Stephen, welcome back to the X Zone. Boy,
I'll do commercials.
Oh, okay, please do. It's always great having you with us, Stephen, and you must be busier than a one-armed paper hanger these days.
Yes, we're nearing the finish line of a 76-year-old journey that basically spanned my whole lifetime and a full generation of the baby boomers. It's an activist movement that's about to finally get the prize, but not surprisingly, the last stretch is really crazy, wildly crazy.
Now, there's a final bill that is being looked at, and what happens if that bill is passed? Or do you think there's going to be changes that are going to be made in the bill before it is passed?
Well, bring you up to speed. It has been passed and signed. And by the way, before we get started, because a lot of people probably do have their computer in front of them, if you just Google Paradigm Research Group, just those three words, just Google them, my site comes right up, paradigmresearchgroup.org. So if you can get it up, there's several things there that will be very useful to our chat tonight. So just Google Paradigm Research Group, or the full URL is paradigmresearchgroup.org. Up on that site, very front top page, you scroll down a little bit and you will see two links. It's right underneath that big graphic. And one is to the original bill submitted for reconciliation in our Congress. And on the right is the final bill that came out. And the first bill was primarily authored by Chuck Schumer, Mike Rounds, and I think Senator Reid. And it was a massive bill, just a total package. And then the final bill was cut down about 60%, 70%, in a pushback from the defense contractors. So that was a wild and crazy period there. I mean, it was really intense. Went on for a couple months. And the final bill is essentially similar, but they removed all of the enforcement powers, all of the ability of the Congress, even the White House really, to affect this issue. And what the bills are both about is a controlled disclosure plan. Though in the second bill, that's not said. But the initial bill was the complete package. In other words, we are going to bring everything out of the United States government's classified files, everything including technology, documents, everything. And we're going to begin a process to bring it out, review it, postpone some things for various reasons, but account for why it was postponed, and then give it to the public. Obviously give copies to the public, and then the actual docs and records will end up in the National Archive. And it gave significant powers to a number of entities. And most significantly, it declared eminent domain over non-human tech. And then the final bill is pretty much has that idea, but without all the powers. And so essentially the control of the release is in the hands of the people that have the stuff, which is in many cases defense contractors. So that's kind of what just happened. I can easily do 2 hours on that, but those two bills are there and you can read them. They're side by side on top of my site. But here is the really interesting thing that's happened. We are in a very strange place in that informal disclosure is really taking place. Now, this gets very confusing, and let me help. Disclosure with a small d has been going on for 76 years in what I call the pre-disclosure era. And it's everything that's being discovered and found and released by the government, and the government has done some of that has filled up bookshelves and boxes and files. Massive amount of material has emerged since Roswell. And that is disclosure, small d. It's a revealing process. Disclosure with a capital D, though, as I came to define it in, I think, around 2001, is not a process of revelation so much. It is an announcement. It is an event. It is the moment that a head of state of one of the main nations, the big ones, confirms the ET presence, accompanied, I'm sure, by copious amounts of evidence and whatever is needed. And that is easily going to be one of the most, if not the most profound event in human history. Because once one head of state does it, all of the others will follow very quickly. And the world will know it's not alone in the universe, and that there's a whole lot to find out and learn about. So that's disclosure with a capital D. And then after disclosure with a capital D, that event, then small d disclosure will continue on into the indefinite future. But the disclosure event will trigger a very substantial and robust government process to get the deeply classified stuff, everything the government knows, some of which we have learned about, but most of which we don't know about, and get that out to the public in an orderly way, starting very quickly after the bill is passed or after the president announces, and ultimately end up in the archives. And so that's small d disclosure. Where we are now is we're in a very awkward place. It's not capital D disclosure, the formal confirmation event, but it's kind of gone beyond small d disclosure, just new information. And this is what I'm talking about. Well, just to lead up to this, back in 2009, an astronaut, Edgar Mitchell, a PhD in astrophysics, and walked on the moon, he stood in front of the CNN cameras and said there's extraterrestrials here. And in 2017, Robert Bigelow, a billionaire with a very substantial contract with NASA, went on 60 Minutes and said there's extraterrestrials here. And then a Nobel Prize nominee, a genetic scientist with an endowed chair at Stanford, Gary Nolan, went on, I think it was Tucker Carlson, and said there's extraterrestrials here. All right, and there's others, right, that have done that, but again, not small, what we'll call unofficial capital D disclosure in a sense. But then everything changed on June the 5th, when a first true whistleblower, certainly one that is gone the full route, emerged after 2 years of disquiet and upset and concern, he ultimately made the decision to take matters in his own hands, and he came forward. His name was David Grush. An interview was arranged with Ross Coulthard, a fine journalist, now working for News Nation. And an article was written in the Debrief, a good publication, by the two of the authors of the December 16, 2017 New York Times articles. I'm talking about Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal. So this is a very significant announcement. And he came forward and said, look, I was informed by people in USAP programs working on non-human tech that we've got multiple vehicles and multiple bodies. And I was told that while I was working at the UAP task force, which is sort of his job, was to maybe field information like that. Mm-hmm. And he took it forward in the proper channels, because it's obviously a pretty big deal. But instead of it going anywhere right away, what happened is he started getting problems. People were giving him problems and threatening and this kind of stuff from people in his immediate zone. And that really upset him. And so he went to the Inspector General's office of the intelligence community wanting relief. He got relief. His case was deemed credible. And then he went back to work, but threats continued because the IG can't prevent that. If you want to threaten somebody anonymously, there's so many ways to do it. And so it just kept going, including his family. He tried to talk to Arrow. Of course, there's not much Arrow could do. And so he goes public on June the 5th. This will be an important day in history of 2023. And so when he did that, he basically confirmed that we have, and the wording is intentional in order to avoid triggering people, we have non-human technology, multiple vehicles, multiple, in other words, it's not just random stuff, it's vehicles, and not non-human biologics. Well, that confirms the extraterrestrial presence. Because unless dolphins and whales and elephants and chimpanzees are building microchips and rocket ships, it has to be extraterrestrials. So he's confirmed it right there, which confirms Roswell. And once you confirm Roswell, well, that confirms the government's known since 47 latest that they know about the ET presence. So this was a huge thing that happened. And then that complicated everything that was going on. We've been in a relatively speedy process leading towards final disclosure by the president, involving a lot of people, a lot of efforts, a lot of progress, and including three legislative tranches in 3 consecutive National Defense Authorization Acts, with another one pending. All right, this is June the 5. The other one was not out yet, but pending. And so, wow. So the internet goes nuts. The people in the field, journalists go nuts. The articles covering the UAP issue this year that I'm logging into my website, which if you're on that website, just go to resources up in the right corner and then slide down to print media archive, punch on through, and you will see that for this year, I'm up to almost 1,900 mainstream journalist articles, English language, on the UAP UFO ET issue.
Steve, we've got to take. Stephen, I hate to do this, pal, but we've got to take our break. Exo Nation. Stephen Bassett is our guest. www.paradigmresearchgroup.org is the website, and Stephen and I will be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone continues from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. I'm Rob McConnell. We'll both be back. Don't go away.
Honey child, I've got my doubts. You can't see the forest.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed on classic1220.ca. Stephen Bassett is my very special guest this hour. His website is, are you ready for this, X Zone Nation? ParadigmResearchGroup.org. And as always, Stephen, glad you're with us. So June the 5th, 2023, a pivotal day when it comes to the disclosure and the end of the truth embargo when it comes to UFOs and ETs.
Absolutely. It's a major day in history, and it will be seen as such. And so this triggered a number of things. That was including, as I say, massive press coverage, of which I'm now approaching 1,900 articles.
Wow.
On my website under Resources Print Media Archive. If you read all 1,900 of them, you will be extremely knowledgeable on what's going down. And of those 1,900, a handful would be considered skeptical. A handful. So we're at a whole different place now. Okay, so what's going to happen next? Well, several things. First of all, Tim Burchett, who was a Republican congressman from Tennessee, he'd already been speaking out on this issue. He had gotten the info, he got tipped one way or another. He was quite convinced there's an extraterrestrial presence. And so he went on several shows and said there's an extraterrestrial presence, adding to the others that I mentioned. Very straightforward, very candid. And so when Grush comes forward on the 5th, I think he very quickly starts to realize that the House should probably hold a hearing, because the Senate had not yet, kept holding off, at least a hearing with witnesses sworn in and so forth. There had been a couple of briefings. And I think he started to move on that. But somebody else had a much bigger problem, and that is this. The Senate Intel Committee was clearly behind the major progress in terms of this issue. They are the ones that have been authoring the legislation in 3 consecutive National Defense Authorization Acts, each one bigger than the other, about twice as big, setting forth a lot of process and helping to set up Arrow and what have you. And the 4th one we sort of knew was going to be an important bill. But you see, this progress, this next legislation and what would come next did not account for a David Grush turning up. So he literally throws the non-human non-human bodies, which is extraterrestrial, up in the air, and it holds. I mean, he is given a bit of a rough time, but ultimately he's not repudiated, and his story held up. His record is known, and ultimately, I think all reasonable people, felt absolutely the truth. And he was being supported in other ways, and so it was clear. Now, again, is that disclosure? No, it's not. But it's a major step forward. But it is a little ahead of the program. It wasn't supposed to happen yet, and so one of the entities that had to deal with this dilemma was the Senate Intelligence Committee. What are they going to do? What kind of bill are they going to write this time? Are they going to try to pretend that Grush didn't exist? Are they going to just act like, well, he's just somebody that came forward, but let's don't get carried away here? No. I mean, the internet was on fire, and there's the number of people following this in the social media world is growing by the millions every year. And so the decision was made by none other than one of our most powerful members of Congress, and that's Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, one of the most powerful, what we call the Gang of 8. And so between June the 5th and July the 14th, he got together with Mike Rounds, who is not on the Senate Intel Committee, he's on the Senate Armed Forces Committee, and a Republican, and he is a Democrat. And they put together a 50-page addition to the limited language that had been put together leading into going into July, and announced it publicly. They didn't just put it up on the legislative website, the Senate website. He went public and announced exactly what he was going to do. And it was a bombshell that struck me. Probably I was more astounded by that than I was Grush, frankly. And so Schumer comes out and says, look, in this next bill, we are going to establish in so many words, the basis in which everything is going to eventually come out and go to the public. And we're going to set up a president, not a presidential, but a review board appointed by the president. We're going to give subpoena power to that review board and to certain members of certain key oversight committees. We're going to give the review board and these people on the oversight committees the ultra highest level security clearance and access. So there's no part of the secret world that they cannot go to or get into if they so desire. And then he dropped the big one. And we are going to declare in this bill that the United States government has eminent domain over that non-human tech that David Grush was talking about. And, of course, the non-human bodies or biologics. This, of course, really got some people's attention because our defense contractors have been working and re-engineering and studying and trying to extrapolate new science from these crash vehicles for decades. It's as closely held stuff as there is. And this is the unacknowledged special access programs. Billions of dollars. And they've learned a lot. And they are civilian companies with shareholders. And I believe it's fair to say that they had great plans for when things could be public and this stuff could become part of our world, that what they learn and what they've designed could be then commercialized, making vast sums of money for them. And they've been patiently having to wait because they couldn't do that. You're not going to be able to come out with some radical new tech that you can't explain how the hell you resourced it. And that blows the truth embargo up, and the truth embargo is still the government's policy. And so they were not happy because he's basically saying, if we want it, we will take it. Now, eminent domain is not stormtroopers crashing into people's offices and grabbing stuff. It says that, but it means is what it means in a traditional sense. If the government wants it because in the service to the public good, it can take it, but of course it will reimburse you for it, right? Or the government may choose not to. The government could take it, but then work out arrangements to develop it in partnership. But it will be the government that will decide, not the defense contractors. And this was unacceptable to them. And so what they did is launch, starting on right away, I'm sure, starting on July the 14th going forward. They had 5 months to launch a counterattack against that bill, which eventually was published a few days later and seen around the world and remained on that website for 4 months. So, I mean, the message was sent. No matter what happened, the message was sent, what the intention was of the Intel Committee, along with the support of the Senate Majority Leader, who is not a member, he's an ex officio member. And so they just put a shot across the bow of the whole truth embargo. So they had 5 months, and we didn't know much about it. This was all behind the scenes because they couldn't go public. What they did was the defense contractors got together with their intermediaries, probably lobbyists, almost all under NDAs, and said, look, you got to go on a hill. You got to go to those members of Congress we've been given millions and millions of dollars of donations to, campaign funding, and you've got to convince them to strip that bill of all of those powers. But at least you've got to get rid of the eminent domain. Mm-hmm. And that went on for quite a while, and then finally it became known that this was going on. And by the time we found out, we realized they had gotten to 2 very key people, both Republican, and both heavily funded by defense contractors, and that is the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Mike Rogers, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Turner. And I think they also interacted with the Mike Johnson, who is the Senate House Majority Leader. Later, we learned that Mitch McConnell had jumped in as well on the side of the House individuals, and we were losing. And so this created quite a stir. And so eventually, there was not a compromise, really. They got everything they wanted basically out of that bill. And it was reduced, all the powers were stripped out of it, but the essence of the bill, the idea of bringing stuff forward was there. But obviously weakened, substantially weakened. Okay, and so what was notable about that? Well, this is something that we will know about in time. But Chuck Schumer is a very smart guy, and he was playing chess. And he made an extraordinary move, an end-game move, the kind that masters make, and everybody gasped because they realized the game is completely turned, and it looked like it was going to be at best a draw. By making that statement on July the 14th, because he accomplished a number of things. First of all, he forced the truth embargo managers, particularly the defense guys, out of the cover for the very first time. They have always stayed in the background, said nothing, had nothing to worry about. Suddenly, they had to come forward. And this effort to negate that bill, reduce it, confirms something. What does it confirm? I mean, right away, we learned that eminent domain was their principal target, but they decided to go for all of the powers. Well, if there's no ET tech, if there's no non-human technology in bodies, then why in the hell do you care about eminent domain declared over non-human tech?
Exactly.
And so essentially, Schumer got the entire defense industry to confirm what Grush had already stated. And also, it should be mentioned that 12 days after Schumer makes that move, by then, Tim Burchett had successfully put together a hearing for a subcommittee of the House, a subcommittee of the Oversight Committee, and several of the members of that committee included Anna Paulina Luna and Nancy Mace, congresswomen, and they put on a full court press to get a hearing, and I don't think they would have gotten it normally, but Grush wanted to get in front of. He wasn't going to wait for the Senate. He wanted to get in front of a committee, and they were happy to provide that opportunity. They were also able to get Fravor and Graves, Ryan Graves, David Fravor, who are fine witnesses, pilots. They'd already been telling their stories for some time, but it meant that Grush wasn't going to have to sit there by himself. And so what happened in that hearing on the 26th, I was there, is Grush confirmed everything he told Coulthard and the debrief under oath in public with cameras running. So he is reaffirmed. So, whoa. So now what Schumer did was he forced the managers of the tech out of cover, thus essentially confirming the truth of Grush. He backs Grush up completely, which means the pressure on Grush should fall away completely because he's basically saying Grush is absolutely telling the truth. He sent a message to the Senate Intel Committee that the committee, the Senate Majority Leader, I'm totally with you on your efforts to move forward on this issue and your legislation, in case they didn't already know. But he certainly made it publicly known. He supports what the Senate committee is doing. All of this he accomplished. And I believe he didn't care what they took out of that bill. Well, there is a possibility.
Stephen, I hate to do this again, but we're on tight breaks here,
no
so
problem.
We'll be back, my friend. Exonation, our guest this hour is Stephen Bassett. His website, www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. And this is the X-Zone, and you're listening to us on Classic 1220 and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. The X-Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. We'll be back on the other side of this break.
Don't get me wrong, it's not that I knock it, it's just that I am not in the market for a boy who wants to love only me. Yes, and
You know that it would be untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire.
Exonation, Stephen Bassett is my special guest this hour, ParadigmResearchGroup.org, and you're listening to the X-Zone on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed worldwide on classic1220.ca. All right, Stephen, let me see. We've got Grush in the congressional hearings, but before we get that back to that, aren't we coming up to a presidential election year in the United States?
Oh yeah, of course.
How is it possible that because of the elections, this entire new bill and everything that you and others have worked so hard for can actually be put aside?
It is possible. And before we wrap up, I'm going to go directly at that point.
Okay,
I
great.
assure you. It's critical.
Okay.
But first, just get this basic story out.
Please.
So, following up on what I was saying, it's possible that Schumer knew that people were getting pretty twitchy because there have been 3 years of legislation. Obviously, things are getting more serious every year. And he might have been concerned that they might pull the entire bill, which would have created an internet firestorm. So by packing it up with those super duper, powers, he figured, oh, they'll strip that out, but the bill will, the fundamental bill, which is the underneath part, meaning we're going to start bringing this stuff out eventually, would stay. But I don't think so. I think he knew that bill would pass, but he wanted to accomplish something there, and he did accomplish something. So that the ultimate changing of the bill has now outed the Defense Department, not the Defense Department, the defense contractors. And so, again, what we're seeing is the idea that the United States has non-human tech, which means extraterrestrial tech, and non-human bodies, which means extraterrestrial bodies, is now completely out there. It's out there. It's being covered in the media. Again, they use non-human, and there's a reason for that, because extraterrestrial is still a trigger word. UFO is recovered. The stigma is now gone, and it can be used without too much concern. But extraterrestrial, particularly in the context of Congress and law, is a trigger word. But again, let me be clear. Everywhere you hear non-human in legislation or from the mouth of any member of Congress, just substitute extraterrestrial. All right? It's that simple. Because, as I say, chimpanzees, whales, dolphins, and elephants, who may be the smartest animal, non-human on the planet, cannot build computers and rocket ships. That leaves only one other possibility. Now, there's a very cool moment in that hearing when asked about what they have. He mentions non-human tech and biologics. And Mace, I think it was Luna, says, do you mean by biologics non-human? And he says, yes, non-human biologics. Okay. In other words, they got the craft, multiple, they've got some pilots, they're dead. Our research in the public sector believes, and I think it's true, that they've had one or two living pilots that they held for a while, which of course raises a whole bunch of other questions, but they're certainly dead now. And so this now thing is really hanging out there. What do you do next? And this is where it gets really tense. Okay? The dilemma that the Senate Intel Committee faces, and Chuck Schumer included, is this, as I see it. Now, I'm going to be making an effort to get up on the Hill and see if I can get in front of some of these members. I'm going to be sending out a number of requests for meetings to the schedulers to meet right after the after the 6th. I'll be away until the 6th of January. And what I'm going to be saying, if I'm given the privilege, is that this is the choice you have now. If you do not hold a hearing immediately after the 1st in January for there's several dozen witnesses ready to testify at a moment's notice, and most of them have been briefed already, and they've all been briefed one way or the other, and their testimony is like Grush, in some cases even more powerful. The testimony of these witnesses, and let's just say they do 3 a day, 2 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, that's 15 witnesses. It will of course be under oath and will be viewed by countless millions of people. That testimony in 5 days will completely blow the truth embargo to bits. In which case, the president is in a very comfortable position to come forward and confirm the ET presence, non-human presence, right? Somebody's going to have to say extraterrestrial eventually, because the evidence that has been put forward, not only in that hearing, but previously, is clearly compelling. He's watched it. You've watched it. Everybody's watched it. And so consequently, he has made some calls. And yes, we are not alone. And everybody wants to know a lot more. And I'm going to see to it that you get a lot more. Expect more hearings, expect more legislation. And then he's going to turn around and walk back up Cross Hall. And the reason they set that podium at the end of Cross Hall is when the president has a particularly awkward time, they can turn and walk away and the press cannot follow them. That's what could happen. And if that happens in late January, what happens next is incredibly helpful and valuable and important to our country and to the world. Because we are about to go through down here the most bizarre, wild, awful election we've ever had. It's going to be off the charts. It's going to be mind-numbing. It's going to be emotionally draining. People are going to watch the news for about 6 consecutive nights and leap off their balconies. It's going to be hell. And somehow or another, and it's going to cost $6 billion. And at the end of it, we won't know what the hell we have for a government. That's what is coming. If they hold the hearings and we get disclosure from the president, that, aside from being the most profound event in human history, shifts the fundamental narrative completely over to the issue. And so whatever issues any candidates were going to use to climb their way back into office or get the office, they will have this extraordinarily important thing that they can discuss and engage. And they will have some time to read up. The books are there. The documentaries are there. You can get pretty up to speed in about 5 days if you put your mind to it. They can have their staff get up to speed. And so what happens in this election is we've got 2,000 candidates. That's roughly how many balloted candidates there will be. Most of which, if they have any sense at all, will be able to say something intelligent about the fact that we just learned that we're not alone in the universe, that we have non-human tech, that we have worked on that tech. There's potential possibilities there. The future looks extremely interesting. Wow, isn't this wonderful? They'll be able to talk about that. They'll be able to answer intelligently some questions, and they will get questions about this. And when it's all said and done, we will end up with a new government in 2025 in which the electorate, the fine electorate of America, will have some idea of what the people they just elected plan to do or think about the fact that we are not alone in the universe and we have the presence of non-humans here now, multiple species. That makes that election completely different. It turns what will be hell into one of the most amazing and interesting electoral processes ever. Now, there'll still be nonsense and craziness, but this issue, so important and so nonpartisan, will allow all of these candidates to shred their mask, take off the clown suits, and actually act like normal human beings, talk intelligently, because there's no way to partisanize this. That will be handed to them by the Senate Intel Committee and our president as a gift from the cosmos. That's what happens if the Senate holds that hearing. If it doesn't, and there is word getting around through the rumor mill, which I cannot substantiate yet, but it goes roughly like this, that Senator Warner has made the decision to not re-engage the issue until after the election. I hope that's not true. I hope it maybe is on the table. But let's assume that somehow that is the game plan. This will be a catastrophe. Because what will happen is the election will get underway with the first primary, January 23, New Hampshire. Actually, it gets underway with the Iowa caucus, which I don't understand it, never have, never will. And so you're going to have 2,000 people running for office. The president has not confirmed the ET presence,
Right.
but a number of people have basically confirmed it. The media has confirmed it. The defense contractors have confirmed it. And so these men and women are going to be out there. They don't know jack about this issue. They're not going to hire anybody in my world to consult with them because we're just a bunch of UFO nutters, right? We don't know anything. We're fools, idiots. We believe that ETs are here. It turns out there are, but they're not going to do that. And so they're not going to be able to answer any questions right. They're going to make fools of themselves. What do you think about the non-human tech, sir, Senator or whatever? Non-human tech, what are you talking about? Well, David Grush. I don't know a David Grush or whatever. It's going to be a fiasco. And then here's where it gets worse. Essentially, one of the fundamental issues in this campaign is who's lying the most. And you're going to have everybody calling everybody else a liar. Okay? That's what we do. Now, from a purely political point of view, all right, in terms of the election, from the standpoint of the president, all right, and I'm not getting partisan here. I'm just stating the obvious. With this issue hanging up there and known to millions of people in other countries as well, go read the articles on my website. That's just the English language, but English language press includes India, Canada, Australia, UK, and the UK news tabloids have massive reaches worldwide with hundreds of millions of page views. And so that's hanging up there, and the president can't say anything. And so he's going to get asked. He's going to be running for president. Mr. President, what do you think about the non-human tech? Mumble, fumble, I don't know, whatever. What, is he going to disclose it in the middle of the campaign? Meaning, oh yeah, I'm running for president, and I want to say that we have an extraterrestrial presence here. And I'm the great truth teller. And people will say, why didn't you do something sooner? Why wasn't there action in the Senate? Why didn't you instruct them to take that hearing? In other words, it's just going to exacerbate the whole thing. And Biden is going to take a massive hit over this. Now, again, I'm just pointing out the obvious, right? I am neutral. I'm an activist trying to get disclosure. Disclosure transcends politics. But these are non-trivial points, particularly if you're Chuck Schumer and Mark Warner and Kirsten Gillibrand. So this election goes from being extraordinary, a game-changing election that may actually be tolerable, may actually be exciting, to being what almost certainly is going to be the worst year of my life and the worst year of a lot of people. We've already been through some really bad elections. This is going to top them. So this, one or the other, is basically in the hands right now of Senator Schumer, Senator Warner, and Senator Rubio. These are the people that can call that hearing. The president can't force that hearing. The Supreme Court cannot force that hearing. Those men can force that hearing, create that hearing.
All right, Steve, stand by. We've got to take our final break. Exonation, yes. Steve Bassett is my special guest. His website is www.paradigmresearchgroup.org, and we'll be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and around the world on classic1220.ca. Don't forget, another hour right after this hour, because we're here Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, once again on Classic 1220. Don't go away.
China, we can only lose.
Stephen Bassett is my special guest, X-Zone Nation, ParadigmResearchGroup.org, and you're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from the Broadcast Center and Studios here in St. Catharines on Classic 1220 and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. All right, Stephen, we're in our final segment, my friend.
Very good. Okay, here's what I'm asking people to do. When disclosure comes, whoever it's from, but let's say from Biden, it's not just for the American people. It's for the entire world. And once that announcement is made, other heads of state will follow very quickly. Carlos Obrador of Mexico, Sunak in the UK, Trudeau in Canada, even Xi Jinping, and probably even Putin. All of the major heads of state will follow very quickly. And so now we have global disclosure. So everybody can help here if you're on Twitter, and that's about 1.5 billion. So big number. So here's what I've done. On my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, if you have it up, underneath the main header photo, you see a big graphic, and it says Shiftstorm. Don't forget the F. Shiftstorm.org is the website. And here's what we're doing. It's basically a tweet storm. In that graphic, you see the heroes. On the left are the House heroes. Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, Nancy Mace. On the right are the Senate heroes. Chuck Schumer, Mark Warner, Marco Rubio, Kirsten Gillibrand, Michael Rounds. Okay. But the three we're interested in are Schumer, Warner, and Rubio. The chairman, the ranking member, and the Senate Majority Leader. And what we want to do is on that site, when you go to shiftstorm.org, what I have done is given you all the information you need to send them tagged tweets. Members of Congress, almost all of them have Twitter accounts, but they don't have direct messaging. I think most people can get that. But you can get a message to them through tagged tweets. And so when you scroll down, what you'll find is I have given the Twitter handles for these three men. I've also provided the email contact form. Right? I've provided also contact information for Burchett, Luna, and Mace, not to be part of this storm, but if you want to send them a nice message of appreciation, by all means, do it. But the storm involves those three gentlemen. And here's how it works. If you go on Twitter and you send a message at Senator Schumer, at Sen Schumer, right? Or at Mark Warner or at Marco Rubio, Senator, please, we want hearings on this right away. We want them in January. We're looking forward to the president confirming the ET presence. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your effort. Bam, send it off. You could send the same basic message to all three, but don't send the same message over and over again to the same senator, right? You want to send 20 messages, fine. Make up 20 different messages. And when you tag it with that at Mark Warner, what happens? It goes directly into their notifications box. That's what it's for. It doesn't go in their feed. It goes in the notifications box. And guess what? They have staffers whose job is to check that notifications box all the time, because that's how they find out what people on Twitter are saying about their boss. And so when that staffer goes into that box and sees hundreds, if not thousands, of tagged tweets, messages asking for hearings in January from people all over the world, it's going to get their attention. And they're going to call their boss and say, Senator, we're getting a whole lot of messages in here in the notifications, Twitter. You should probably check it out. And so the senator just goes on Twitter, goes to the notifications, and up they come. You can scroll down, however 1,000. We want to get 100,000 tagged tweets into them by early January. All three of them. All right. It's as easy as it could be. All you got the handles, and then you just crank up the messages, post. Copy, post, bam, 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 off it goes. Let's get 100,000 messages into them. Now, you can also send emails, but it gets tricky. You have to, technically, they will not go through unless the address is in their state. So if you're Schumer, New York, Warner, Virginia, Rubio, Florida. So all I'm going to say is that if you want to send a email message to them, and we'd like to get thousands in if we could, unless the address is in their state and the zip is in their state, it's not going to go through. And so we're going to hit them with tagged tweets and emails, not phone calls. Don't go get their phone number off their site and start calling. That just irritates them. It's negative. Don't do it. We got the perfect way, and that is tagged tweets. And so we're going to be doing this to make the message. We want those hearings. And everybody can play. 100,000, that's a lot, and it's quite doable. Frankly, one influencer. I'm not on TikTok and Instagram. I don't have the chops for that. But I know that there are influencers on Instagram and TikTok. A lot of them are quite young. They could be in their teens. Okay, they're basically Gen Zers who have 15, 20 million followers because they're very clever, very cool. If one of those TikTok influencers were to say or put out a message, I want those hearings too, go to this website and start sending some tagged tweets, we could get 1 million. Now, I don't know any influencers, and sending a message to them on their site is, of course, ridiculous. They've got 20 million followers. But if you know one personally, give them a call and ask them if they'd like to change the world. The power of the internet to direct messaging, the power of the internet for activism, the power of the internet to change history, we have only just begun to plummet that power. We know that it has the ability to bring down the most powerful people in the country. Very powerful men and women, right? Famous, rich, and literally bring them down because they have done egregious acts, and the internet knows it, and the internet shows it. And so that's one way the internet is powerful. But let's turn it to the positive side, right? We have an historic moment here. It's in the hands of 3 men. If they hold the hearings, I know who the witnesses are going to be pretty much. Those witnesses end the truth embargo by allowing the president to step forward. If this happens early next year, then this issue will dominate this election. It will be the focus of this election. And what people think about this, how people plan to deal with this, will be maybe the major reason they get elected, right? Or at least a significant reason they get elected. And we will have a fully operational post-disclosure government in 2025. And we can get to work. In fact, we could actually get to work right after disclosure, because just because there's an election doesn't mean other things don't stop. The post-disclosure world could be the opportunity for us to start fixing things. There's so many things that are broken that aren't fixed. There's so many things that need to be reformed, and nothing is happening. We have all kinds of challenges around the world. People are incredibly depressed on major drugs, unrest, you name it. We're heading towards end times almost, and the movie people know it. We just had a movie turn up on Netflix called Leave the World Behind.
Oh, yeah. We were watching it today.
Which is extremely interesting.
Yeah.
And just happens to be executive produced by Michelle and Barack Obama. Now, you may hate them, but something you need to know. Barack Obama knows there's an extraterrestrial presence. I guarantee it. And so does Michelle. That doesn't mean they were going to ingress it when he was president, but they know. I guarantee it. And that movie has a message, right?
Yeah.
And it's also about EMTs, but a lot of people don't know that. There were 2 EMP events. But there's other stuff coming.
Steve, let me ask you this. I'm sure a lot of listeners are wondering this question.
I've made my points. Thank you.
My pleasure, Stephen. Always great having you on the show. You're very informative, and we appreciate it. We appreciate your hard work, and I've known you now for nearly 20 years. And you, my friend, are one of the hardest people working on the Hill, including many politicians. So, are the electorates going to be able to see physical evidence to support the claims that the ETs are here and that the technology is here before the election?
If we get disclosure, well, the Senate will have the potential power to bring some extraordinary evidence out if they want to during the hearing.
Right.
Right. Obviously, we know there's ET tech. If they could get some of that tech and bring it in, but they could also show hours of gun camera footage, the good stuff, the long stuff. So it's not about what is going to come out. It's about getting the confirmation in a compact process that's under oath and publicly viewed. It doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all of evidence explanations. It just has to be enough to get disclosure. Now, once we get disclosure, obviously the process that is outlined in that bill will begin. However, there is another aspect to Chuck Schumer's brilliant chess move, and I believe he knows this. He knows full well that even though they stripped all of the major powers out of that bill, if we get disclosure by the president in January, he can turn around and submit that exact same bill as a standalone bill, and there is no way that Congress will not pass it. In the post-disclosure world, with the world on fire about the reality of not being alone, and they put that bill together, which is essentially the bill that allows for a robust, controlled disclosure process with powers, nobody is going to be crazy enough to vote against it. And so that bill sails through. So he knows he can still get it. So
What-
it didn't matter whether it was stripped out.
But what
This,
would
again, is part of the chess move.
what would happen if the government or the powers to be decided to classify everything that disclosure is trying to bring forward to as a matter of national security?
It's already classified as a matter of national security.
So how can they declassify it?
Well, that bill gives them the power to do it, right? But do it in an orderly fashion.
Okay.
That bill demands a report in 300 days of everything you have. You have to provide that, and then you have to start submitting this information. It can be requested,
Okay,
and
what?
those documents will go through a review process. It doesn't mean they'll make it out right away,
Right.
but those that can go forward will go forward. So people will start learning new stuff and seeing things that were classified very quickly after disclosure.
One more quick question, because we're coming down out of time very fast.
Uh-huh.
A new president comes in. Can he use executive privilege to kill the bill?
Very, very unlikely. Very unlikely. No.
Well, if a president gets in there who's in tight with the great military complex, and this would be detrimental to the military complex making a lot of money, why would he allow the bill to continue when he has the ability to squash the bill using executive privilege? And
Well, they have a lot of abilities that would be political suicide. Let me be clear. Well, if we don't get disclosure in January,
Yeah.
this issue is going to continue to expand worldwide. The internet is going to fill up with more and more and more podcasts, more coverage. There may not be anybody in the friggin' country that doesn't know we're not alone by next year. And so if the president, whoever it is, turns around and says, I'm gonna lock everything up,
right.
he'll be impeached.
I think in order for everybody to get behind this movement, they need to see proof. I really don't think that words alone are going to do it anymore.
Well, of course, they're going
Yeah.
to get plenty. The testimony from these gentlemen when they testify is going to be mind blowing, and these are going to be firsthand testimonies. And yes, they can provide lots of visual evidence.
Stephen, I hate to
They
do this,
wish.
but we've run out of time. So, Stephen Bassett, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Sure.
And Exonation, if you'd like to get more information from Stephen's website, paradigmresearchgroup.org. I'll be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on Classic 1220. Stream classic1220.ca.
Midnight confession.